the Samsung Galaxy A36 and A56. Now, these are some of the most popular devices that Samsung makes, the A series. They sell a lot of these devices, in some cases more than the S series as well, in lots of regions. So we've had some hands-on time with the A36 and the A56. The A56, I've actually posted my full review. Now, overall, good devices. Design, you've got polycarbonate on the A36, so, a bit of a cheaper build, but you've got actually quite a premium build on the A56. They've got roughly about the same design. They are slimmer now, so around 7.4 millimeters down from 8.2 millimeters. And you've got Gorilla Glass Victus. You've got some variety of colors. I would say that the A56 has like kind of muted colors. They're a bit flat, whereas the A36, a bit more vibrant, gives me that Note 10 vibe, and I do like those. They call all of the colors awesome for some reason. The displays are good, I would say. 6.7 inches AMOLED, 120 Hz, Full HD Plus resolution. They're brighter compared to last year. So we've got 1200 nits in high brightness mode, 1900 nits with the Vision Booster. And I can tell you myself, having tested this on a bright day in the UK, which is rare to find, they actually performed very well. Now, there is a chin, okay? And although the bezels are smaller compared to last year, we've got that chin at the bottom. Before I say what I think, what do you think of that chin? Does that matter to you?
No, actually, to be fair, when you just mentioned the chin, like I was doubting if I remembered looking at the chin when I had my hands on. So to be fair, it doesn't bother me.
Okay, so it wouldn't bother me, but if you look at phones that are priced lower, and the most recent example comes to mind is the Nothing Phone 3A, which is starting at 330, right? When you compare that to this, that's got uniform bezels, no chin. So to me, it's like, okay, so it could have been achieved, right? Not the end of the world, okay? But just something there that's kind of a little bit annoying. Now, with the cameras, the A56 has the more superior cameras. So you've got a 12 megapixel selfie camera. Now, the selfie camera, I gotta say, very good, right? Really good, crisp selfies, great with portrait mode as well, that I found in my review. And also for video, they've really improved the video from the selfie camera when it comes to things like dynamic range. Very good. And that was something that I was definitely impressed with. They have certainly improved the selfie camera. Now, for the rear-facing cameras, okay, you've got a 50 megapixel primary camera on both devices. You've got a better sensor on the A56. And once again, very good images, good low-light images as well. And my favorite thing about the A56's camera, from the primary camera anyway, is that it's excellent for portraits. Portraits, I mean, edge detection, beautiful, right? And I was just like, man, this is very, very good. Like for a $400 to $500 phone, £400 to £500 phone, excuse me, very good. Now, there's a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, which is okay. It's 8 megapixels on the A36, which is pretty weak, but hey, it's just an additional camera there. But then they've got a 5 megapixel macro camera. It's like, come on, it's 2025. We do not need a macro camera just for the sake of saying that you've got triple cameras. It's like, come on.
Look, they've got the sensors and lenses hanging around in the factory. They got to use it.
That's what it seems like. Because I mean, what would make more sense, right, is to have a dual camera setup with the autofocus on the ultra wide camera, right? Yeah. So then you can actually get good macro shots, right? I'm not saying that they're bad macro shots, but come on, man. Like, why do we still have this? I think you're right. They've got lots of parts to like around. They just want to do it. Plus, they just want to claim that they've got a triple camera design. Now, the design has been updated. You've got like a linear camera module rather than the separate rings that we've had from Samsung. Looks pretty decent. Have you been testing? You've not had a chance to test the cameras out yet, have you?
No, because it's not coming out in the US anytime soon. I mean, like it's coming out in the US at some point, so I don't have a unit. But I did play around with the device with the hands-on. I like the build. I like the build quality of the device. I do like the colors of the 36 more because it's less muted, compared to the 56. Some of the camera images I took while the hands-on, and some of, at least I saw from Danny as well, Danny Wingate, looked pretty good. Like I think Samsung's image processing coming onto this device has really done a good job.
Yes.
I haven't spent time with the processor, so I can't tell you anything about gaming with that 1580 Exynos, right? I believe that's the processor on there.
Yeah, 4 nanometer.
And then the Snapdragon
Snapdragon 6 Gen 3.
Gen 3 for the 36.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing. Like in terms of performance, I mean, it's okay. In particular, the A56, which I've tested out more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a larger vapor chamber, which is comparable to the S24 Plus.
Okay.
LPDDR5 RAM, pretty decent. Lots of improvements compared to the last year's Exynos 1480. So you've got a 12% NPU improvement, a 17% GPU improvement, and an 18% CPU improvement. But I mean, it's for that price range. Do we have other devices with better performance? I would say so. Like, I think particularly in the US, you've got the OnePlus 13R with the 8 Gen 3, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Hands down, if performance is your thing, that's the one to go for. Now, granted, in the UK, it's priced higher.
Isn't it the same price or $100 more?
So it's $500 in the US. In the UK, it's a bit more. So it's about $650 in the UK. So that's the problem, right? So if it was in the US, then it's like, oh, it's easy. Just, just based on performance, I would go for that.
Yeah.
But I think, so the sort of saving grace for Samsung is the software, right? Because they've got One UI 7.0 and they're offering 6 generations of OS updates and 6 years of security updates, right?
Oh, that's great for a budget phone.
Bro, and if you're a B2B customer, it's 7 years, okay? Now, at this price, unless you get a Pixel, right? Which not a lot of people they're familiar with Samsung. They like Samsung's One UI. They prefer the image processing, etc. Then you're not going to get longer software updates on any other device at this price, right? It's just not going to happen, okay? So that's something that I think they've really gone for. Now, you've got some AI features. I mean, you've got Circle to Search, which obviously is coming to a lot of Android devices, which is quite good. You've got AI Select, where you can, turn things into GIFs, wallpapers. You can also, if you select an address, it's going to take you straight to the maps. If you select a phone number, it'll take, pretty useful, right? Object Eraser. Okay, the way I described Object Eraser in my review was, it's like cleanup on Apple Intelligence, which means it's not very good. It's okay. It's okay if it's a very clear, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, you've got a person in the background on a relatively easy sort of, something that's quite easy to remove. Yes, it's going to take that off. If it's something more complex, then it is night and day when you look at something like the Galaxy AI features that we've got in the S series, right? Okay, which are right now, I would say, top of the league. They're doing really well. Now, the A56 does come with a few other additional features compared to the A36. So you've got Read It Loud, so it can just read web pages out loud for you. It's got Best Face, which, oh my God, this created some really, really funny looking results. It kind of took the bottom of my teeth off because it's using motion photos. So it's not actually using multiple photos. It's using the same photo. You have to have motion photo enable. So it's using the video and it's basically picking a frame from that and it's trying to enhance that. So it's not perfect. It might make the best out of a bad situation, but in my testing, some of those ones, it's like, oh, bro, this is bad. But anyway, there's also auto trim. I mean, it's okay. It's not something I could see myself using. All right, one thing that I was quite happy with is the battery life, right? 5,000 milliamp hour battery, right, on both the 36 and 56. And that's comparable to the S25 Ultra. The flagship device, you've got a big battery. It's a bigger battery than what you've got on the S25 Plus. It's a much bigger battery than you've got on the S25. I mean, that's pretty good. And it's got faster charging supported, although in the UK, there is no charge included out of the box, right? So you've got 45 watts of charging supported. Obviously, there's not going to be any wireless charging. But then, here's the thing. I know it's not out in the US, but in the UK, A36 starts at £399. So that's for the 256GB model. They're not doing 128. You can get 128 in other regions. The A56, 256GB, £499. Okay. Now, in isolation, I gotta say, that looks like a good deal. It's a pretty good all-rounder. It's got good cameras. You've got a good display. Granted, it's got a bit of a chin, but it's 120 hertz. It's got a good design and build, the A56 in particular, right? Now, the thing is, if you go into Amazon, and this is something that I looked at in my review, right? You go into Amazon right now, you can buy the S24 FE for £550 directly from Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, granted, it doesn't have the same size battery as the A56, right? But you've got the full suite of Galaxy AI features. You've got a much more powerful chipset. You've got triple cameras with a telephoto, a usable telephoto, not a useless macro camera, right? So then you think to yourself, for £50 more, should you not just get the S24 FE? Personally, I would just do that, right?
Yeah,
Now,
speaking of those prices, just check the US prices here. You can get an S24 FE 128 at 498 or 256 at 539. And then the S24 used or renewed, as they like to call it, you can get that starting at 434.
exactly. So now, even if you got the S24, fair enough, the S24 Plus is more of the comparable version, right? How much is the S24 Plus going for? Maybe a little bit more. I would say not too much more, right? Even if you went for the 256 model.
Yeah.
And you're going to get, remember, you're going to get, and especially if you go for that, you're going to get a much better chipset. You're going to get all of the Galaxy AI features. So, I mean, that this is the full suite of Galaxy AI features. I'm not talking about just
$562, by the way.
There you go. There you go. You know what I mean? It just, from that perspective, as I said, if you look at it in isolation, it's not a bad offering. You look at the wider, bigger picture of what's available right now. It's just like, now this makes it a tough sell, right? You've got wireless charging. You've got all of these things that you've got on a proper flagship device, right? Yes, it's last year's, but then when you like that's my point though. It's like that makes it a tough sell for me.
So this begs the question, right? And maybe this is why this kind of leads to something Apple does every year. Should Samsung not release another A series and thereby just focus on bringing new colors or refreshing the excitement for last year's model? Because Apple does this with the iPhone, right? They give us they didn't do it this year, but they give us a color in spring for the iPhone.
I think so. So now this is the thing. That's a possibility, but I think a regular consumer is not the target market for this. I think they are very heavily targeting B2B customers with this device, right? Because if you're going to be buying, you're going to get higher discounts. If you are a B2B customer, you're going to be buying maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 units, maybe more, multiple hundreds of units, right? From Samsung. And if you're doing that and you're going to be getting 6 years of software support, which you're not going to get with many of the devices, you're going to have to buy directly from Samsung. You can't just go into Amazon. If you've worked in a business before, it's like a whole headache. You need a supplier and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what their aim is. That's what they're going for. They're like, okay, let's target the B2B customers. And that's why they're offering this software support. So if you're if you're an employer who wants to get Samsung, you've got Knox, you've got all of this stuff. And especially with some of the controversy with the iCloud services with Apple recently, in the UK in particular, I think this is a perfect steal for Samsung to come in and say, hey, forget the iPhone 16e, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. Here's a better offering, which we're going to give you a better deal on, and you're going to get this much support.
Yeah, I agree. I think with that notion, it makes sense. I think for the regular consumer, there are options, whether you going, previous year or even some of the other phones we mentioned, like the, Nothing 3A Pro, the OnePlus. There's many options to battle with on the regular consumer side. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, so that's the A36 and A56. I mean, good offerings in isolation, but there's lots of other things out there.